All right, we're live.
It says we're live. Hello, can you hear us? Are we unmuted?
No, they should be able to hear
okay.
us.
They can hear us.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yes. So welcome everyone to Monk Chat here at Empty Cloud. And we can introduce ourselves. I'm Sivijana Bhikkhuni, visiting for some length of time, probably a Vasa, and
Okay. And I'm Venerable Wade Burdi Panyo, ordained in Thailand at Wat Makjan, a branch monastery in the Ajahn Chah lineage, back in 2014. And I've been staying here at Empty Cloud for about 2.5 months now.
And I'm Bhante J, and I'm visiting. So it doesn't seem like you actually do see the... Oh wait, let me see. No.
We need to see the chat.
Yeah, unfortunately. Remember, Tan and I were testing something out from this before.
Right.
It doesn't seem like you can see the chat if you go full screen. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
All right.
So,
well, this evening, if I may say so, this evening is Monk Chat, which means there's an opportunity for people viewing to write in questions for us. There's no talk. We'll just be answering questions. So any questions you may have stored up on any variety of topics you can ask now, as long as it's related to Buddhism. We already have a number of people writing in. It looks like saying good evening. Maybe we can scroll through and see if they have any questions for us. Jayanta, Mary, Kim, many people writing in greetings. Louisa, Karuna. Right.
oops.
Good to see many of these people. We've also seen in the monastery recently, Karuna recently, and Mary as well, and so it's nice to see them online as well, studying the Dhamma.
So it looks like there's a question or comment here. As I'm looking, okay, so I click on it.
Yeah, just
Show
click
it.
on it.
I'm looking for formally taking refuge and the 5 precepts. Is there an upcoming opportunity at Empty Cloud? Yes, you could come maybe before a meal, or what ceremonies do we have that's coming up?
Well, one that's coming up soon, in which we normally would give the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, would be our Sunday afternoon Dhamma session. It starts at 1 o'clock, goes until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, open to the public here. We start off with the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts at 1 o'clock, and then a Dhamma talk, a guided meditation, and question and answer period with some walking meditation as well. But actually, in the Theravadan tradition, it isn't a big ceremony for the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts in general. So it's often quite normal for lay supporters to come into the monastery to, maybe to make a small food offering, or to make some Sangha dana and request the refuges and the 5 precepts at the same time. Even you just come in and request the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts at a time when the monastery is basically open, if you will, when there's stuff going on. So here, for example, in the morning, shortly before 11, would be a good time to come if you'd like to come and request those. Pretty much any day of the week, in addition to a formal Dhamma session, is the one that I just mentioned.
Yeah, thank you for reminding that Sunday's opportunity also as a group, but individually you can request them for monastics, and also, but you want to formally take them, and sometimes that does give a little bit more power to it if you're making it publicly and to another person, just voicing that. That you get aspiration really to keep these precepts. And then also just understanding how important that they are as far as our happiness, our individual happiness and harmony with other people. There is another question here.
I might add, if I may. Sorry.
Okay, before we go
Just
to the
thinking-
next question, you want to add something?
If I may, I'm sorry. I was
Sure.
thinking through what I just said about coming a little bit before 11 to request the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, if you'd like. Also could be done shortly after the meal is eaten, so perhaps sometime between 12 and 12:30. But it may be best actually, if you're coming in specifically for that purpose, to shoot an email to us at info@emptycloud.org to let us know a few days in advance. So that time can also be a little bit busy with the lay supporters coming in to make food offerings, for example, and clean up after the meal and this kind of thing. So if we have a heads up that you'd like to take those, the refuges and the precepts, one of the bhikkhus or the bhikkhunis can be ready to do that for you.
Here's another one. It says, Andy is asking, can I ask which of the Buddhist disciples do you have a lot of respect for and feel an affinity to in their story or background?
Okay. So,
Do you have, either of you have a?
I have an answer.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, I guess I'll go. Yeah, for me, it's Mahakassapa, the grumpy old man of the Sangha. I love Mahakassapa. In many ways, I feel connected to him. His love of nature, his love of being a bit ascetic, his complaining about how the monks used to be so much better and now they're all, complaining about the younger generation. I quite enjoy Mahakassapa. And I really connect to, something that he said is something I think about often. And he talks about that he ate the country's alms food, a debtor. Like that's something that I always keep in mind close as a monastic, that until I'm awakened, I'm a debtor. And I eat the people's alms food with a debt that I have to repay. So yeah, Mahakassapa. And that this is actually something I suggest most Buddhist people do. Like there's a great book, I think it's Helmer and Heckler or whatever, The Great Lives of the Buddhist Disciples. And you can read all the stories of those, the disciples, and see if one kind of connects with you. So Mahakassapa is kind of my role model in that way. I try to be as ascetic as I can within the limits of being balanced and things like that. And I prefer being out in the nature and in not in a city in New Jersey, these kind of things. But yeah, that's my answer is Mahakassapa.
Do you have a person with disciples?
Well, sure. I think at different times, different ones inspire me. One that I return to time after time in my mind is the Lady Visakha, the Buddha's foremost female lay disciple. For example, one thing I admired about her was her meditation practice, her mental culture. She, at one point in her life, she asked the Buddha for several boons. She said several favors, and the favors she was asking for were the opportunities on certain occasions to make alms food gifts to monks. For example, if a monk was ill or if a monk was traveling, for example, times where it might normally be difficult or inconvenient for them to come by alms food. And so she requested to be the one in her area to be called upon to do this and be informed to give alms food, and she would do it very happily. And the Buddha asked her, why is it you see this as a boon? Why is it you see this as a favor to you? And she says, well, because when a bhikkhu passes away, and it's one that I've given alms food to, I can ask the Blessed One, now that this bhikkhu's passed away, where has he gone? Where has he been reborn? And the Buddha will tell me that he attained to such and such a certain level, and so perhaps he's beyond rebirth, or perhaps he's attained to anagami and he's up in the high heavenly realm with only one birth left, or perhaps he went to one of the heavenly realms. And thinking about this, and that I gave him alms food, I will feel rapture arising. And I think this is quite inspiring how she views the practice and the practice of generosity and the mental culture that she has, seeing the benefits to her meditation in these practices. It's one reason I have a lot of admiration for Lady Visakha.
Well, there's a Arhat Bhikkhuni Sona, and one of the reasons why it was inspiring, her story is inspiring, is that she was older when she went forth into monastic life. It said that she had this idea that she was a wealthy widow, and she divided up the family wealth amongst her children, and she had this idea that she could go and visit her children and just live for the rest of her life between her children, but they didn't agree with that, and she ended up being a beggar her on the street. And then she sees a bhikkhuni. Can't remember if it was Patachara, but there was one. No, maybe, I don't think it was. It was she sees an inspiring bhikkhuni, and she's not getting very much as way as alms food, and this bhikkhuni is getting alms food, and she says, "Oh, maybe I'll join her." But she turns out to be the bhikkhuni foremost in energy. She is a junior in monastic years, but she's older than everyone, and they're having her do the build the fire and do haul the water and do this kind of stuff. But even though she's doing all these chores, late at night she's doing walking meditation in the dark, and she's going from pillar to pillar, feeling the pillars in the hall for walking meditation, so she doesn't lose track of where she's going. And it said that all the bhikkhunis go out to visit a neighboring bhikkhu monastery, I guess for the Ovada or something like that, and she's left to tend the fire. She's supposed to boil water for the bhikkhunis, so when they come back, have boiling water, and they come back and they find her meditating in front of a big vat of cold water. And they're like, "Well, you were supposed to be boiling our water for us." And then she uses her psychic power to get the water boiling. Wow. Because she had been applying herself so hard while they were out visiting the bhikkhu monastery. She attained arhatship, and they realized because she could heat the water with her psychic powers. Wow. That she was an arhat, and they're all like bowing to her. I'm like, please forgive us for our arrogance. And anyway, but she's known as the foremost bhikkhuni with energy. So that's inspiring that she, even though it was difficult for her, she just completely gave her heart to the practice. So that's why she's my choice.
Wow.
Yeah, the stories of the Arhat bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, and also the lay disciples who have some attainment, are very inspiring. So I think we've got some, let's see. So this is kind of a technical question. Oh, we got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. It says, I want to write to a monastery about practicing with you as my Sangha. Do I write to the email?
Yes, that would be great. If you go to the Empty Cloud website, emptycloud.org, you'll see that there are icons across the page, at the very home page. And one of them says visit. So if you click on the visit icon, you'll find a lot of information about visiting the monastery, and you can follow through with that. And I believe it has the application on there. Is that right? The application is on there to apply for if you want to stay overnight. There's an application on there for staying overnight as well that you can fill out, or you can see how to come for some of our day programs, for example, or to log on to other live streams. So a variety of opportunities there by going to the website. Of course, if using the website is difficult, do feel free to just send an email to us at emptycloud.org, and we can respond appropriately to see how we can facilitate for you.
I've only seen one up there. Because this is it says, Dear Venerables, what would be a sutta that you find particularly inspirational and why?
Who first?
Well, it's hard to choose. There's so many inspiring suttas. Let's see.
I have one.
Oh, you have one that's
Sure.
standing out in your mind right now.
Sure. One that I've liked a lot in recent years is the Chula Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta of the Majjhima Nikaya. It's the shorter exposition on the elements, which to my mind is kind of a tour de force meditation instruction sutta. It's cast in terms of the six elements, earth, water, wind, fire, space, and consciousness. And the Buddha goes through these, talking about these in relation to meditation practice, and then how to analyze one's thinking and to watch the mind in order to attain enlightenment. And again, as I said, I think it was a tour de force meditation instruction sutta. It's in the Majjhima Nikaya, Chula Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta.
It's hard for me to select one because they're all.
There must be at least one. Well, which ones do you find inspiring?
It's just it doesn't say the most inspirational. It's just particularly inspirational. So you can just.
I keep going back to the Honeyball Sutta. It's a Majjhima Nikaya. It's a middle discourse is number 18, and or honey cake, and I like it because the Buddha is challenged by this wandering. I guess he's in the Brahmin caste, Dandapani, and he's kind of this ostentatious kind of guy, and he wants to strike an argument, and the Buddha says it. And he said, and the Dandapani is like, well, what does the ascetic proclaim? Ready to get into an argument. And he says, I proclaim a doctrine that doesn't argue with anyone. And he kind of caught Dandapani off guard, and he leaves. But it has to do with letting go of craving. And it's a really deep sutta, and I can't say I've completely penetrated it. It's if I have, I think I would be completely enlightened. So it's something that works with really examining the mind and how craving does rise, and at the sense gates, at contact at the sense gates. So because it's challenging. I think that's why it inspires me, because it's I know I have a lot of work to be done, and but I keep going back to that sutta and pondering it. So that's just one of my favorites.
Bhante J?
Yeah, okay, easy. Salla Sutta, similarly the arrow. That is one that I think about often. Right, the Buddha is telling us, that the average person is hit by 2 arrows. The noble one is only hit by 1. They do like a matrix dodge of the second one. The arrow doesn't hit them. Right. So this is a very amazing sutta where the Buddha really kind of diagnoses a lot of our underlying habitual tendencies. And that really allows you to kind of know where to look when you're doing an investigation of your mind. You can see, I was like, oh yeah, that is my habitual tendency. I do that over and over again. Right? This is a great sutta for anybody that has any level of addiction, because in all honesty, we're all addicted. we all have when we have unpleasant experience, we all drown it out with some kind of pleasant experience, whether it's drugs, food, video games, sex, whatever it is. We drown out our unpleasant experiences because we don't know an escape from them. So when you really understand that sutta, really study that sutta, then you can use that as a guidepost for developing insight by observing what's going on in your mind. And it's like, yep, there's Buddha the psychotherapist again. He knows exactly what's going on there. That's the way it is. So, yeah. I just particularly enjoy the arrow similes that the Buddha has, like the one like get up and sit, and the Buddha's like pluck out the arrow of suffering, of craving yourself. It's like, yeah, that's the warrior karma in me, of plucking out arrows and things like that. But yeah, Sala Sutta, similarly the arrow, great sutta.
Is that S-O-L-A or S-E?
S-A-L-L-A.
S-A-L-L-A.
Sala.
But Bhikkhu Bodhi calls it simile of the dart, but it's really an arrow.
Darts or arrows. There's a sutta that's also, I think it's like 5 situations that are impossible to be. And there's like, it has having what is the nature to die, not what is the nature to get old, not get old. What is the nature to sick and not get sick? What is the nature to be lost, not get lost? There's 5, what would be the 5th one? But anyway, there's 5 and impossible things, and then people torment themselves with a dart of anguish, saying, "Oh, why? Why is it like this way?"
Yeah, there's a lot of arrows in the suffering life. Yeah.
So they torment themselves with a dart. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's a good simile. We're actually tormenting ourselves with the second arrow.
Yep.
You know, I wonder if I could mention one thing. So I think it's related to this is the sitting here thinking and listening to the venerables talk about suttas. I think about so many other suttas I find so inspiring as well. And perhaps it's worth mentioning that there's one great book that's for anyone who would like an introduction to the suttas is Bhikkhu Bodhi's In the Buddha's Words,
right?
Because he gives quite an overview of the Buddha's teachings from the suttas in this one book. With so many suttas in it, it's chock full of suttas, categorized by theme and kind of laid out in a step-by-step way also. And so it's a wonderful introduction to the suttas. In the Buddha's Words by Bhikkhu Bodhi.
Did the Buddha ever mention Annapanasati purely as a jhana object, or is it always used within the context of developing the 4 satipatthanas? Did he use it purely as a jhana object before awakening? It's hard to separate. I think it's said in the suttas, actually, the Buddha had realized as a child that there was this pleasurable experience he had that was the jhanas. And he wondered, could that be the way, that pleasure that he experienced, could that be support or the way towards awakening? So I think he had experienced just this deep stillness, peacefulness, But somehow he saw that it was more than just that. There's something about that experience that would lead him to awakening. So, do either of you have any ideas about that?
Well, personally, I don't see the four satipatthana or Anapanasati as being separate from either jhana or vipassana practice myself. If you look at the 16 steps in the Anapana Satisuta, for example, you see that you have in the first tetrad, the first four are calming the body, and then on the second tetrad, calming Vedana. And experiencing like PT, for example, one of the factors of jhana, and in the four foundations of mindfulness practice, you have similar kinds of things in there. If you read the Satipatthana Sutta, and these, and in the Annapanasati Sutta, the Buddha says if you practice practice mindfulness of breathing, it fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness, and it brings the 8 factors of enlightenment. Seven factors of enlightenment. To fulfillment. And all of these things fall within the scope of the Noble Eightfold Path as well, which include Samma Samadhi. So for me personally, I think Anapanasati is about both, concentration and vipassana, and practicing insight meditation as well.
I'm just trying to think of, there's some discussion with this one. A certain bhikkhu, I think that he was describing a way of using the breath meditation, and then the Lord Buddha corrected him and then gave him the full Anapanasati instruction of the 16 steps. So I think it was used as a means for calming. I think this is what he's looking for, is there's just a simply means for calming the mind at a certain point in your development, or if it's always just associated with the insight practices. But I don't know specifically if he does just uses it as a means for jhana. There's kind of like this assumption that a person would know how to enter the jhanas in some of the suttas, where he just kind of talks about entering jhana, but how is that done? So yeah, I don't know if it being mentioned purely as a jhana object anywhere, but it doesn't mean that is impossible. As far as your development is concerned, it may be that it's hard to separate. Yeah, I think it's probably impossible for it to be completely devoid of any development of wisdom, because in order to enter the jhanas, you have to have a certain amount of wisdom. You have to be able to be free from hindrances and really know how to put the hindrances in abeyance. So that takes a certain amount of wisdom, and there's some suttas that's in the Dhammapada that there isn't any jhana without wisdom, and there isn't any wisdom without jhana, or something to that effect. I think Ajahn Brahm likes to quote that in Pali even. I don't have the Pali or the English probably. 100%, but so I hope that helps. Okay,
I think
so
it might be worth scrolling up a little bit to see.
okay, so we got
'Cause I
more
think we might
questions.
have.
Okay.
Oh, okay, no, good. All right.
This is- Is that the one?
I think not. I
Yeah,
did
that's-
click on that.
Yeah, there we
There
go.
it goes.
Gayatri. Okay.
Says, I have a question that can be spiritual as well as historical. If anyone can be a Buddha, why do we always use the male pronoun for the Buddha? Is it just the reference to Siddhartha Gautama? Oh, that's a little bit controversial. And I think there is a sutta somewhere in the Digha Nikaya that does specify that Sama Sambuddha needs to be male, but there's some arguments whether that's an authentic statement by the Buddha or not. So that might have been a later addition, some people argue. And yeah, and I guess it depends on your definition of Buddha, what the Buddha is. It's an awakened being or self-awakened being or and in the future, why not? It'd be female Buddha. I don't know.
Right. Hopefully, I won't be here to find out. Little joke.
Buddhist joke.
A Buddhist joke, right?
Okay.
But actually, I've got a question for Gayatri. Gayatri recently started a meditation practice. I wonder if she's been able to keep it up. Not to put you on the spot, Gayatri, but if you have, I wonder if you feel like it's been beneficial or not. Doing some meditation on a regular basis. If you feel like sharing with us a little bit, be nice to hear. Okay.
And according to the Buddhist teaching, any gender can be an arhat. So, and that's after the teaching has been dispensed by a Buddha, that either we get direct contact with that Buddha or now we're having it passed down over the centuries. So we have the opportunity to awaken, some level of awakening. Let's see, what's that? That's not what I want to do. And this is Scott. Humans who have ended abuse may have cultivated anger and hatred along the way. Fear and anger may be triggered when encountering abusive situations. How to proceed when overwhelmed by fear and it ends. And
Anger in the situation.
okay.
Is the next one.
Okay. Would it be possible to go to full screen for this one? I couldn't quite follow. Click on this icon on the right there. You can take a closer look at it. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Abuse may have cultivated anger and hatred along the way. Okay. Fear and anger may be triggered when encountering abusive situations. So proceed. Right.
yeah. So they've endured it, but and it sounds like maybe they've gotten out of an abusive situation. Depends also what the situation is. If they're along the way, so during one's life, they might have experienced some abuse, and they may be, so it can also be triggered by situations that aren't abusive, but they reminds them of abuse. Sometimes there's some confusion, especially if someone's been experienced trauma. How to perceive when overwhelmed by fear and anger? Is that? If it's possible not to be it's hard once a person is overwhelmed. When the mind is overwhelmed, it's very difficult. And if you could remove oneself from the situation. I had a lot of, I would call myself an aversive type, and I would get triggered and get extremely angry sometimes by certain people, the way they're speaking to me. And sometimes I would just I could feel the anger surging in me, and I would just have to excuse myself and leave the room. And it might have seemed rude, but it was better for me than to lash out and start getting angry back. I felt that was a better approach to the situation, a better way of dealing with the situation. Because if I'm feeling totally overwhelmed by an emotion, I might have to be able to cool down. I have to remove myself from what's going on. And I've mentioned this before in Monk Chat, but there's Chad Ming Tan had this book for people, and he worked for Google, and he wrote this book, The Search Inside Oneself. And there was a chapter on anger, and he suggested, even if you're feeling like you're going to blow up, anybody can go to the restroom quickly for some reason or another. So if you feel like you're going to blow up, you might just like go into the restroom really quickly and calm yourself down. And if you're in a situation where you can communicate with people reasonably, and you might say something, I need to excuse myself. I can't talk about this right now. And excuse yourself. If you're overcome by fear, why are you overcome by fear of somebody actually threatening you? Or it seems threatening because you've been in situations that have been threatening. So if you're overwhelmed, I think somehow if you can remove yourself, I think that's the best thing, calm down. And learning ways to keep calm and not get overwhelmed. So and that may take help from others, like a therapy, or it depends. If it's a traumatic, if you've had trauma in your history, abusive relationships, then seeing a good psychotherapist may be helpful.
Sadhu.
Do either of you have something to add to that?
Maybe I think I like the suggestion. I like all the things you said. I think it's really wonderful advice. About what to do in the actual situation, about how to work on it as a long-term project, so that you don't become overwhelmed in the first place. I think one aspect of letting go of one's feelings about traumatic or abusive situations might be reflecting on it once we have a chance to make the mind calm. So, for example, if you have a regular meditation practice, when meditating, after making the mind calm a little bit, reflect on the fact that it's impermanent, that the things that happened to us in the past are kind of gone. It doesn't mean that abuse doesn't still happen in the world, and it doesn't mean that we may not face abuse again in the future. even. But at least with regard to abuse that happened in the past, now it's gone. And if we can familiarize the heart with that, over time, through making it calm and kind of bringing the attention of the heart to that, the impermanence of the situation, then that can help the heart to kind of let go of it, so that it doesn't trigger as many emotions again in the future.
No, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, it's like he's saying, it's might take years to heal from the trauma from the past. And then also just if fear is coming up or anger, if anger is coming up from a situation from the past, just reminding oneself that it is past. It is not happening at this moment. But I think it's good to get help from others. So let's see. So we shrink this somehow.
It would be here.
Okay, exit from screen. I see. Okay. So yeah. So it is a challenging situation. I have a lot of sympathy, and it is important to guard ourselves from anger. So
Gayatri, maybe your response for the question about our meditation.
But there's
there's one before it. Sorry.
I think there's probably more.
Right. Scroll up. Okay. Oh, one more time, maybe. It still isn't quite showing. There we go.
Says, how do monks handle chronic pain when the entire body is in constant ache and inflammation? I am currently having body aches and pain. It depends on if there's something that can be done to alleviate the pain. But if, like, I know there's some you kind of have to weigh is the means to treat the pain. Is there side effects or something like that? So what is the means justify? So chronic pain, it can be exhausting. And I think to have sympathy for oneself and compassion for oneself, I've had sciatic pain, and it was like constant, and there was like nothing I could do for quite some time. I did actually, with the help of a chiropractor and other things, heal. But I know for quite some time, I just had to. I was meditating lying down, and I just had to. Just to be compassionate for myself if I needed to sleep, and but I think there's the issue of the second arrow that Bhante J was talking about. If we're saying, "Oh, why is this happening to me? This shouldn't be happening to me. I don't want this happening to me." This kind of aversion toward situations, adding the second arrow. So recognizing this is the nature of the body to experience pain. This is a situation I'm in now. And sometimes you might say that the whole entire body is in constant pain, but it may be that there's points in the body, like at the joints, like all over the body, but there's probably areas that aren't painful. And you might find those areas. And I guess it depends on the pain level and a lot of different things. If you can get some relief from it, that's great. But If you can't, then just being compassionate for yourself, to yourself, and for me too, just the experience of pain as a sensation instead of something that's horrible or something that's unwanted or something it's an unpleasant feeling of the body. But I think if the mind is not, there's a sutta, the Lord Buddha tells the Kula Putta, I think it's the Kula, not Putta, but Pita, the father of Nakula, that because he was old and afflicted, and then the Buddha says he could be afflicted in body but not afflicted in mind. And then the Venerable Sariputta, the Nakula Pita goes to Sariputta, and Sariputta says, "Oh, he looked radiant." And he said, "Yes, Nakula Putta says he's been anointed by a blessing from the Blessed One." And always he repeats that he should be, even though he's afflicted in body, he doesn't need to be afflicted in mind. And then the Sariputta says, "Well, did you ask for explication of that?" And he's like, "No." Anyway, so then Sariputta gives the explication. And it's just seeing that these 5 khandhas are suffering, impermanent, and not self. I'm really contemplating that these 5 khandhas, the body, feeling, perception, volition, choices, will, sankhara, all that. So, and consciousness at the 6 sense bases. These are all suffering, not self, impermanent. So if we really penetrate that deeply, we can not be afflicted in mind, even though the body is afflicted. Did you have something you wanted to
I
add?
wonder if I can offer, they asked what monks do when they're experiencing a lot of pain. And I actually found myself in a situation a few years ago with quite a bit of inflammation in the body. And I actually found another monk lent me a book that he found very helpful, written by a medical school professor who specialized in pain. At the time of the book's writing in 2014, he was a medical school professor at Georgetown University. His name was Kaplan, with a K, K-A-P as in Peter, L-A-N as in Nancy. And the name of the book was Total Recovery. And I found the recommendations in the book to be remarkably helpful, very quickly. So I can recommend that book. Hopefully you'll find it useful as well. I think meditating on pain, especially you say it's throughout the entire body, can be quite difficult. Meditating while in pain can be quite difficult, but a lot depends on your level of practice in meditation, and the quality of instruction that you have, and so on like this. And so it's hard to give specific recommendations about how to meditate on it. But if you're able to cultivate a meditation practice in relation to it, it can be tremendously helpful. I think what Aya is saying is really so true, that it is possible to be at peace internally or even be happy while in physical pain. But it can take quite a bit of practice also, and it may not come quickly. Depending on how much practice you've already done. I think this kind of a situation is a reminder that at any time in our lives we might find ourselves in illness. And for most of us, we'll have to experience old age. And these entail a lot of suffering. And if we develop a practice in advance, then this will be there for us when we encounter these kinds of problems, and it'll be so useful to us.
So now we have. This is Gayatri.
Oh,
This is our response to Tan's.
great.
It says, I have to work on other aspects of my life to make more room for my meditation practice to grow more, as I am not able to do more than 20 or 30 minutes. Is that daily? I commute a lot and have been using that time to meditate.
Wonderful.
So I'd like to say something. I was a single parent and I was a nurse, and I had been a Zen student prior to that, and I had been doing all this meditation and, just like with my life. And then, because of my life situation, I didn't think I could meditate. And I went to this one, it was actually a Tibetan Lama, it was Geshe. And he said, oh, just meditate for 15 minutes a day, well, twice a day. Anybody can sit for 15 minutes. So I did that. And I started he said twice a day, in the morning and the evening. So if you miss one, then you've at least sat that one meditation. So I started doing that. And then I actually started waking up earlier and earlier and sitting for longer periods of time. And now look at me. So, but having a daily practice of 20 minutes or 30 minutes, that's if you can do that daily, that's really great. If you can do it in a circumstance, not driving. I don't know if you're doing it while you're driving. Is it?
Oh, right. So it's just as a commute, yeah.
Yeah, but if you can do it at another time, and also, using something like the time that you're brushing your teeth, really doing things mindfully, washing the dishes really mindfully, just trying to incorporate it in your daily activity. But I would set aside a time, 15 minutes a day to start with, and then you'll find that you'll be able to make more time for yourself. And just think about all the things that you do for 15 minutes that you might miss, you can maybe let go of. Anyway, that's my suggestion.
I think that maybe Gayatri also wrote the follow-up here. I wonder. It's also the same person, I think.
Yeah, do you want to, should we skip over somebody else's turn? So,
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I think that's more a comment than a question. So.
okay, so maybe we should go to the next person.
Okay.
Yeah, I would encourage, 20 minutes a day is great if you can do that.
Sadhu.
Would an arhat set a boundary for what is said around them? Example, an adult says, I wish that child would get run over by a car. So they say something malicious like ill will towards a child, and you're overhearing this, or it's about your child, or how would an arhat approach the situation? Well, I'm not an arhat as of yet. But I think they certainly wouldn't, they would discourage harm and harmful speech and harmful behavior. They may calmly say, oh, that speech is ill will, and that it's not helpful for yourself or for that child. I don't know what the relationship would be with that other person too, whether they would listen or not. But if it depends on their relationship with that person and whether they can have an impact on them or not. But I think if they can stop, I would imagine, this is my imagination, because I'm not I'm not an arahant, so either of you have any.
Well, one thing I think about sometimes with questions kind of like these, this is what do we do about what other people are doing? Or one of the things about arahants is that they don't suffer over what other people are doing because they don't get emotionally involved with it, with other people are doing, or what external circumstances are. And I think that's a reflection that we can keep in mind with regard to other people's behavior. Is well, wait a minute, why am I suffering over what they're doing? And if we can let go, if we can work on how can I let go of what other people are doing, that is not the emotionally involved with it, then I'll be at peace inside, regardless of what happens. What other people are doing, and that's eliminating my own suffering in regard to the situation. And then from that place of kind of clarity and calm, we can see, well, what is appropriate to do in this situation? A lot depends on your relationship to the person who's speaking, in this case, for example, and a lot depends on your relationship to the child, for example, and what kind of information you have and kinds of insights you have about the situation and the other person. And so you simply have to kind of make it up as you go along. Really, in the moment, but endowed with calm and wisdom and mindfulness. These are the kind of key qualities to have to see what's appropriate to do.
So do we usually go to 8:30?
Oh, 9.
Till 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a half hour.
Okay.
Or until there's no more questions.
Okay. So, oops.
Yeah, the chat jumped. That happens.
Okay. So do we want to Jayatri's comment?
I wonder if that may I read? Oh, okay.
It says, I was listening to one of Bhante J's older Dhamma talks on metta, and I want to give metta to even those who did harm to me in my past. I liked how his advice was practical. Boundaries help with metta. Yeah, I think that seeing the situation clearly and then also approaching any situation with loving kindness towards everyone in the situation. And then I don't know if there's something about turmeric. I don't know if we want to post that one.
Adrian can see it in the chat.
Okay.
If they need it.
Okay, so it's for Adrian from Mark.
Who asked the question about the chronic pains.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says half, 1, 2. This morning's teaching on your teaching on the Majjhima Nikaya 20 was delightful after I reread and realized I'm not clear on how signs number 4 and 5 are put into actual practice with persistent unwholesome thoughts. The man slowing down. Yeah. That one is that the thoughts are racing. Well, and then you're wondering, like, why am I running? Why don't I walk more slowly?
She has another thing, it says it's 1 of 2.
Oh, so her comment goes on.
Like it's on Twitter or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to scroll down a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's,
there we go.
There we go.
There it is.
So yeah, it's the one that the person's what? Okay. Come on. He walks. Oh, okay. And the stronger. So the number 4 is a person is running. They see somebody running. But Something that someone explained to me about that is you're observing somebody else doing that. So you're observing your own mind racing. So you're kind of stepping back from the situation of the mind racing, and you think, well, why is my mind racing? Why can I slow it down a little bit? So this is like gradually slowing the pace of the thoughts until the mind becomes more calm and still. So I think that little bit of distancing from your own racing thoughts, and then eventually the thoughts will slow down. But also, and then do you have anything? Did you explain that one in detail about the racing?
Yes, I gave my own explanation with my understanding of it. So it's there in the live stream, of course. What I was saying is that it requires some sensitivity if you're able to have enough mindfulness to be sensitive to the thought processes and how they kind of the process of how the mind forms thoughts and continues thoughts, so you can actually relax that process. It takes quite a bit of mindfulness, I think, and to be aware at that kind of level. Once you have that kind of awareness, then you can actually interact with the process of thinking is over like a physical process, kind of like the man with the walking quickly, then walking slowly, and then standing, and so on. So that's what I can say about that. Then you asked about the fifth sign, which is the sign which does not respond to this, or with which you have not had success with this methodology. Then with that sign, you would practice crushing mind with mind. And it's interesting. It's actually quite a very straightforward description in the sutta. But it may sound odd if you haven't practiced with it, I think. And so if you actually find yourself in that situation and you practice doing what the sutta recommends, clenching your teeth, pressing your tongue against the roof of your mouth, and crushing your mind with your mind, then you'll see how it works.
I think though that kind of situation, it's like you resort to it because it's talking about really unwholesome mental states. And if you're thinking, especially as a monastic, really strong thoughts of lust or really strong thoughts of hatred, and you're afraid you're going to act out on it because your mind is just so overwhelmed by it and obsessed by it, you just kind of say, no, stop. And I don't think some people really discourage that kind of approach because it's pretty extreme, and then there might be kind of it's only a temporary fix, and that it's not really solving the problem, but it may. I think it may help you redirect the mind. If you just try to really, really forcefully stop it at that point and then redirect, it can't be the end of what you do. You can't just like for the rest of the period be sitting there clenching your teeth and press and saying no. For me, I got so I kind of like it's like the cat's up on the table and you say no, and you with a certain amount of direction, but not cruelly, just say no and get them to move off the table, right? If they're not supposed to be up there, and it's just like, I see you, this is not right, stop it now. and sometimes I can do that, or I'll just see a little flickering, and it's like, no. It's like, so, but that takes some work. I mean, you have to have had worked with the mind for a while before it actually is effective because it keeps rearing its ugly head, and you keep having to say no, and then that can be really aversive. But I think if it stops you from acting out or speaking out in ways that are really unskillful, this actually to really use force to really suppress a harmful thought may be a good idea.
I bet Karuna could do it, frankly. She's got probably a very strong mind. She was a person who did very long sitting meditation sessions, enduring quite a bit of discomfort physically. So I'll offer you some encouragement, Karuna. Try it out and see. Yeah.
But that's only after all the other techniques aren't working and you're still obsessing with something that's highly unskillful.
Right. Sadhu.
I mean, if you're just kind of daydreaming, or distracted or something like that, it's not for something like that. And Louisa is asking, how long should a lay person meditate for each day? Well,
I would recommend meditating every single second until you attain enlightenment. But you could start with 20 minutes a day if you find it.
well, if you want to like formal meditation, this is the thing. Like John Wade was indicating, yeah, meditation doesn't have to be on the cushion or some, like one specific spot in your room or whatever. That throughout the day, if you're aware. You're bringing awareness to your mind, to your activities, something to key you into the present moment. But yeah, I think daily, what is comfortable for you is not impossible. Like I was saying that one geshe said 15 minutes a day. I was thinking I had to sit at least 40 minutes or it wasn't meditation. An hour is even better, I've got to at least be sitting an hour, But find a half an hour or 20 minutes or, it depends on your situation, how long you've been meditating. If you're just starting out, I wouldn't try to push a long period of time. And I would increase it gradually, starting out with 15 or 20 minutes and increasing it gradually, and just not making it so that you're feeling distressed, like, oh no, I have 20 million things I need to do, and here I am just sitting on this cushion. But I just appreciate the time that you have set aside and not make it disruptive to your schedule otherwise. It's okay. And this is, I watched a video by Bhante Siddhaso on practicing samatha. He says clearly that the key is not to move your mind from the object. But later he says to do things like look for the pleasure sensations. Well, if you're...
Since I'm confused.
Yeah,
because the whole thing is about him being, or them who are being confused about what seems like conflicting.
Well, that's really kind of a challenge to stay with the object and not move off the object. You can do that. But if you're able to do that long enough, then pleasurable sensations will arise in the body. But it doesn't have to just detract you from your primary object. The mind doesn't have to be. There's an idea that maybe there's just like this really limited scope that the mind has, and it just stays at this one limited spot or something. But the mind is actually capable of being aware of more than just one thing at once, and that doesn't have to detract you. And I didn't hear his full instruction, so I don't know. So it isn't like totally letting go of your primary object, but also it's kind of enhancing the experience. I mean, like I am in this room and I see this Buddha image straight in front of me, but I'm also aware in the peripheral vision of the people in the room, and so I can take it all in. But my primary object may be that Buddha image. That may be one way of explaining it. First thing would be just being patient with ourselves, because the mind will go off the object multiple times, but eventually the mind may settle on the object for a long period of time, and then that in itself is very pleasant.
Looking at me, yes.
Anything more that you want to say? Is that okay?
Sure. I don't know what the situation is. Personally, I'm remaining quiet because I don't really know. I'm not sure what the Bhante Surasa's instruction was. Looking for the pleasant sensation in regard to what, for example, or what? I need more context, I think, to comment on this personally. Just put that out there. I haven't heard the Dhamma talk, for example. So, as far as I remember.
So they're asking wouldn't the Buddha as an Arahant intervene and advise the adult about unwholesome speech with reference to the Arahant's question?
This is about the person saying, "I hope that kid gets run over" or something like that. You don't see in the sutras the Buddha's getting involved with random people's saying things. Why would the Buddha wouldn't be intervening in all kinds of statements that people say? If somebody was making a point to him and that he felt was unskillful, he would state why. But no, just because somebody says some random stupid things, I don't see the Buddha. There would be not enough time in the day for a Buddha to get involved in or any of us to get involved in what people say.
It says, hearing your answers about inspiring elders, you are all clearly confident in the Dhamma being right. Do you ever doubt your life path, whether the Buddhist teachings are right?
Certainly, yeah. And I always leave myself an opening. I mean, like, I've probably explored and studied more of religious and philosophical experience of humanity more than the average person. And I've not found anything more true than the Buddha's teachings. But I mean, I always leave it open that, some aliens might come down one day and show us a teaching that might be more true. And I said, okay, well, maybe I'm just going to have to stop being a Buddhist monk and I follow this alien religion or something. I don't know. Yeah, whatever. so yeah, no, I mean, I always keep that. I might be wrong. I don't know. But I mean, I've been doing this for so long, and the Buddha's been so right that I basically have faith in him, and I give him the benefit of the doubt for what I've not experienced myself. So, I mean, like, I don't have any doubt these days, and I'm not saying like I'm a stream mentor or anything like that, but I don't have any really doubt about the teachings. When I have doubts that arise, it's, can I actually become awakened? Not because that there's no awakening, that like, could I actually do it? Sometimes I'm like, oh boy, I don't know if I can actually do this. but then I get over them. But yeah. And that's the great thing about being a monastic. If one day you realize, well, I probably don't need to do this anymore, you can just disrobe.
Return to lay life. Yeah. Sure.
And if you want, you can come back 6 more times after that.
That's right.
Or at least for the bhikkhus. I think it's different for the bhikkhunis.
I don't know. That's a controversial issue, but
I think most of us would feel like even if we did end up returning to lay life, we would have gained quite a lot from the experience of monasticism anyway. So.
yeah.
I have to think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, please go ahead. Sorry.
No, it seems like you had something to say. I was still pondering the question.
Sure. When it comes to, there's a great, one of my favorite sutras, talking about, there's a question about what sutras we find inspiring. One I almost mentioned was the Kalama Sutta. I actually did mention it in relation to the same question a few weeks ago, I think. The Kalama Sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, it's one of the better known suttas. And the topic of the sutta is how to deal with the doubtful matter of what kind of religious teachings you should follow. And the Buddha says, well, it's understandable why you're in doubt about this when he's asked about it. The people said they didn't really know which teachings to follow. And he says, well, it's understandable you would be in doubt because it's a very uncertain kind of matter. And so he asks them about the 5 precepts. He says, is killing and stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and using intoxicants, is that skillful or is it unskillful? And they agree that it's unskillful to do those kinds of things. And so the Buddha says, well, look at the qualities in your mind that might cause you to do these kinds of things. And he says that there'd be greed, aversion, and delusion. He says, so if you find a practice that works in helping you reduce greed, aversion, and delusion, and is praised by the wise, then keep that practice and follow it and keep using it to get this kind of benefit from it. And so I think that's something we can reflect on in regard to the doubtful matter of what kind of religious teachings are really true, what kind of philosophy is really true. That here we have a standard we can test out for ourselves right here in the present and really gain benefit from immediately.
Yeah, the happiness in the here and now. Yeah, I think this is, for me, the Buddhist teaching is help me in the here and now, and happiness in the here and now. And yeah, I don't know, I have really strong maybe intuition or something that, I mean, I don't want to claim stream entry or anything like that either, but I just have enough confidence from my own experience with the teaching that it's transformative, and it's the best I've seen from comparing other traditions, other religions. So So I think there's enough right in the Dhamma that's apparent here now for me to not doubt it. And there's other things I'm going on faith, but it also makes a lot of sense to me. So. And then, yeah, it could be wrong. But I never thought about aliens. So.
Well, I think, well, where else would some kind of truth come from? There's like,
Some Messiah.
outside of this planet, like,
I don't know.
I mean, humans it's pretty much well documented, all the different teachings and religions. So unless there's some, I don't know. But
The 64 speculative views.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Right there in the beginning. Right.
So we just have a few more minutes.
Yeah.
It's about doubt again. What is Hasanta? Is that who? Oh, okay. They're just answering
yeah.
something. We can doubt anything in this world. We can doubt our government and parents' instructions, or we can choose not to doubt other things. The proof is in the pudding. So yeah, I think putting it to test in our own lives, and not just intellectually understanding the Buddhist teaching, but how it's impacting our lives. I think that's the pudding. Let's see. I think inquiry is woven into the Buddhist teachings. Testing for ourselves, looking at, examining for ourselves, and trying to understand what the Buddha is pointing to.
Investigation is the second factor of awakening.
Mm.
So mindfulness and investigation is the practice. Yeah. So yes.
Oops.
Oh. Jumping again. Yeah.
Cat cuddler. Okay. Yeah, we've got
Lots of comments.
comments.
Robin.
Should we go down to a question?
Yeah, I think so.
It says, can you do combine samatha and vipassana? Or are they two separate types of meditation? Oh, there's a teaching in the Anguttara Nikaya and the Ananda says that any bhikkhu or bhikkhuni who's come to him and claimed that full awakening, they do it by, there's like, I think it's in the fives, and it's either vipassana preceded by samatha, or samatha preceded by vipassana, or the two in tandem, or maybe it's in the fours, the two in tandem, or this person is kind of, the last one is hard to understand the actual meaning of it, but it does sound like their mind it's impossible for their mind to settle because they're so stirred up by the teachings, and eventually it does settle and then they have a breakthrough. But that almost sounds like, I don't know what the last one is about. But the two in tandem are one preceding the other. But a lot of teachers say you can't separate the two. It's like, I think it's Ajahn Chah says that one side of your hand is this side is vipassana, and this side is samatha. It's the same hand, I'm looking at my palm of my hand now, and I'm looking at the back of my hand. But it's the same hand, you can't separate the two. So the mind has to have a certain amount of calm and clarity in order to see things clearly. So a lot of people recommend, a lot of teachers recommend settling the mind, because the mind can get too agitated, which may be the fourth where the mind is very agitated, and eventually it just lets go. I think that may be the fourth one. But usually people have more success to allow the mind to settle. But some people have the vipassana preceding the samatha, where they're really examining the three characteristics, and then that may settle the mind. Okay. The mind can be really stirred up and start seeing the dukkha in the situation, or see the impermanence in the situation, or how it's not me or mine, all these thoughts. If I could say, let my thoughts be thus, let my thoughts not be thus, then they would really be my thoughts. But I can't do that. So then maybe examining it to that extent can settle the mind. But I think the mind has to get let go and even get settled more deeply before you can really see the three characteristics. I mean, maybe progressive. That may be the in tandem approach. Either of you have any thoughts on? You can contradict me.
It is 9 o'clock, and we might have some other questions. I think you.
Oh, okay. But we may need to stop. Is that what you're saying? We could probably go on all night.
Right.
Makes sense, Sangha.
I think one thing I like to point out with regard to samatha and vipassana, questions of samatha and vipassana, is that actually the Buddha's meditation teachings are typically given in a stepwise fashion. And they aren't really divided into samatha and vipassana. Like intrinsically. So if you read the sutras, for example, the Buddha talks about breath meditation, for example. So the breath meditation, the breath is the object of the meditation. Or the qualities of the Buddha might be the object of meditation. Or metta, loving kindness, is the object of meditation. And he provides stepwise instructions for how to practice that meditation. And so we simply follow those steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. Through the steps, we don't have to get caught up in thinking about whether it's samatha or vipassana too much. Just go ahead and practice the meditation technique as it's laid out. Maybe it's an uncomplicated way to do it.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why this is always confusing to people is because people don't read the suttas. So if you read the suttas, there's no such thing as vipassana meditation and samatha meditation. The Buddha does not speak in such ways. Vipassana and samatha are mind states. It's how you develop. And so, the Buddha teaches jhana so that you can develop a mind so deep in samatha that you can see things more deeply than in your regular time. But then there are people like me who are not that great at samatha and who are more, inclined towards satipatthana. But as I had mentioned in the 4 kinds of person suttas, whichever way you kind of are inclined to, eventually, your mind is developing both. You follow the Buddha's meditation practice and you'll be developing both.
And that sutta may be the very rare instance where that's even mentioned as one preceding the other, or them in tandem, or in conjunction is another way that's translated. Right.
I think the idea of vipassana meditation arose due to the particular social and historical context. for example, it really became kind of a big trend in the 1900s, mid 1900s, early 1900s, and so on like this, in response to kind of a lack of people. I'm no authority on the subject, but a lack of people like applying investigative techniques in their meditation, and perhaps even the idea that it wasn't possible to attain enlightenment anymore. And so kind of bring in that aspect that the investigation is a part of the practice also, and that we want to try to do that because it really is possible to get things like insight knowledge and try to attain enlightenment and so on. But that said, so it was relevant to a specific kind of historical context, and had no doubt had value. The teachers found it had value for their students. But now I think perhaps it's gotten to a point where it is more confusing than it's helpful to people, as they believe that there are two different kinds of meditation: samatha and vipassana, which Bhante J was, I think, so effectively speaking against, and that one is better than the other or something like that, which isn't really the case either. So add that as a reflection on the issue.
Well, it's now after 9, and we apologize to all those who haven't had their questions answered. Let's see if we're at the end of it. No, there's quite a few.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let's thank you. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, there's still a few, but I don't think we have time to be able to address them well. Might save it for another monk chat. And appreciate your kind attention. And just want to have my little disclaimer where this is my opinion and understanding of the teachings, and I'm doing my best, but yeah.
I think normally we do some sadhus, and maybe we can make maybe a couple quick announcements and then close. Does that sound okay? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right.
Sadhu to all of you.
We have the public Dhamma program on Saturday night as usual from 6 to 7:30 with a guided meditation and Dhamma talk and questions and answers here at Empty Cloud Monastery. And then on Sunday from 1 to 4, the longer Dhamma session, which would include, in addition to a talk and question and answer and guided meditation, some walking meditation as well. Again, those are both here at Empty Cloud Monastery, open to the public. And so you're all invited. And perhaps that wraps up Monk Chat for us this evening. All right.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
We just end.
Right, there we go.
Okay.